Good evening, everybody. This is Carol Milletta from the Parenting 411, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. I told you we had a great segment out here for you tonight. I'm looking forward to talking about raising future leaders. I will be joined by Jairrod A. Burch of Value on Purpose. He's also known as Mr. Value. He's going to talk a bit about what he does, helping people to discover their purpose and own their value in whatever endeavors they undertake. And then we're going to talk about how we can prepare our children to operate in purpose, to be prepared to take over leadership roles outside of their own lives, as well as in career, education, entertainment, sports, wherever they are, so that they can succeed. Because there's lots of things that we can pour into them while they're young to put them on the right path. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. We can build the foundation. I also want to remind you that I have a special edition of News You Can Use on Saturday. I'm going to be talking to scholar, advocate, and change maker, Adi Selassie. She is a rising senior and she has been active. She has started 2 nonprofit organizations to address 2 very important issues. One being teen mental health and also clean energy and sustainability. And she's going to share how she has started some initiatives in the community that are really, really taking hold, and you may even want to be involved. But as I said again tonight, we are talking about raising future leaders. So allow me to welcome Jairrod A. Burch to the conversation. Welcome, Jairrod. Thank you for joining me this evening.
Hey, Miss Carol, how are you?
I am doing fine. I am fine. So why don't we just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, as well as your company and the work you do at Value on Purpose.
Well, my name is Jairrod A. Burch. I started my company Value on Purpose with Jairrod A. Burch back in 2015. But before I get to that, I come from a large family, all boys. We grew up in the church. I'm actually the youngest of all, and it's 5 boys. So
Wow.
Growing up in Canton, Ohio, and then leaving Canton, Ohio at the year of 2000, going to Indianapolis, Indiana. There I experienced a lot about myself. I experienced a lot of good, and then I experienced a lot of bad, but also in the year of 2015, being able to start Value on Purpose, I was able to understand why there was a need to start teaching and equipping people to understand what their real value was.
So, well, let's talk a bit about that. What were you seeing?
Well, one of the things is I noticed a lot of people who, especially when I grew up in church, so you're always around a lot of gifted people in our Pentecostal background, things like that. But it is the most gifted people who are always highlighted, pushed to the front. But I had to learn that just because people received and loved your gift doesn't mean that they valued you as a person. So I had to understand and I had to experience and find out that just because you're in a place where you are needed does not mean you are in a place where you are valued.
And, I was wondering if you were going to say as well that just because you're in a place where you are needed doesn't mean you're in a place where you should be. Like, sometimes that can happen as well, like where you really should be pursuing something else, like you're really, there's really something different or higher for you, but you kind of fall into things that are easy for you to do. And people seem to need that from you, but it might not really be your your purpose, or it might not be where you really belong. That's where I thought you were going.
Well, I mean, that's actually what I was saying is because this is what I also teach and tell people. You being needed does not mean that you are being valued. And a lot of times, because we are gifted in whatever the gift is, whether you're singing, whether it's administration, whatever it is that pushes you to the front. Usually it's gifts that not are in the background, but gifts that are up in the front, where you can speak, or things like where you're always in front of the crowd. We get a pseudo sense of belonging. So we feel like because we're in demand and we're always up front and we're always being used, and we're being used, but we're being misused, because it wasn't until later. And I just told one of my clients this yesterday. Before I had an opportunity to start walking and into my yes, I had to learn how to first say no before I can do that. And being in a place where you're needed, it will deplete you. You're always on the go. You're always being pulled from. That's why there's a difference between being needed and then being in a place where you're valued.
And so when you encounter people that might be struggling with that, like, do you have clients where you coach them, or is it more of a group thing where you have workshops and seminars? How do you work with people?
Well, I work with people on different facets. Number one, as an expert value empowerment speaker. That's where I'm able to speak to whether it's a sports organization, a college, university, high school, ministry. I'm able to speak to a broad range of people at the same time. But then there is value life coach specialist, where I'm able to break down one-on-one what a person is needing. And usually they come to me in about 4 facets when they come to me specifically in the coaching arena. And it's usually, people always say, well, what is the main question that you get from people who want coaching? What I find is that it's not necessarily one question. It's a plethora of questions that they have when they come into me. But I find out it's a condition. They're usually in a place of 3 things. Either they need to be pushed into their destiny, they need to be pulled into their destiny, or they need to be propelled. But it's always people who come my way who need that coaching, and it's where they're just that close, and all they need is those 3 things: a push, a pull, or propel.
And so what would be some signs for a person to recognize that they are not in the right place, or that they are in need of some coaching by someone like you?
Well, it all depends, because different people come to me for different reasons. I have a lot of business professionals as clients, but they all have different things. My newest client, as of 2 days ago, she is what they all share in common is that they have this. They're very sincere, but they have a sense of desperation, and it's a good sense of desperation, saying, you know what? I know there's more inside of me. In fact, her words that she used yesterday was, she said, Jairrod, I'm stuck. And those are the type of clients, those are the type of people that are going to be your best clients, because number one, they're telling you right now, I'm being honest. And then you find out that they're going to be teachable. Those 2 elements. So when they're desperate, they have a choice whether they're going to be honest or not. They can come to you. That's why I have a consultation and a screening process before, because I need to find out if we'll be a good fit. I need to find out where your heart is, or if coaching is actually the thing that you need, or if it's just something that you've heard around and you're not to that point yet.
Now you touched on something that I think is also very important in terms of figuring out your purpose and really moving in it, and that's that self-awareness and really understanding yourself, that I think is important. So we're here now to talk about leadership and really planting the seeds of those leadership qualities in children. And so what are your thoughts about that? Like, given what you see in adults, what kinds of things do you think, or what kinds of experiences do you think might be useful to help young people have that, self-awareness, that courage, that vision, that purpose to go out and find what they're supposed to be doing?
I would say the first thing is for anybody to receive. I know for me, I have to know that you care. Before I listen to you, I don't care how skilled you are. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much money you make. If I don't feel in my energy, if I don't get a sense that you're being sincere and that you honestly care, I'm going to cut you off. I'm not going to hear what you have to say. This generation, they won't, and the younger generation coming up, such as my son. My son is 11 years old, but they're more observant than we give them credit for. And I think a lot of times we're so apt to, come here, let me teach you what I was taught. Our approach is so wrong because we see the need, but we need work and tweaking on the method of delivering that need. So you can have the remedy to what I need, but if you don't know how to package that delivery, I won't be able to receive it from you. So I think one of the first things is being able to identify that you need to meet them at the point where they are. Don't try to pull them up. Come down to where they are. Make it so that they can identify with you, that they can feel you before they hear you.
Yeah, and that idea of really connecting, and so that they can really understand what place you're coming from, is very similar to something that I talk about with parents, because there's a book that I read when my children were younger. And it was about discipline, but it was for African-American families. And so in this particular model, the three co-authors, they were talking about, in order to teach your children anything, three things have to be in place, and that's affection, protection, and correction. And so with affection, of course, they need to obviously know that you love them and care about them. Correction, obviously, that you're going to give them the guidance, and you're going to teach them. And when they are, going down the wrong road or whatever, you're going to correct. And then protection, and that's boundaries, like giving them some guidelines within which they're free to operate. And so what often happens is that parents will, they'll focus on one thing, or only one of them. And like I try to tell them, it's like a stool, a three-legged stool, right? If you don't have them all, then the stool doesn't stand. So, sometimes some parents may lavish all the love and, through material things, through, just, obviously, affection and all of that, but they kind of focus on that, and maybe a little slack on the correction and the protection. But then you may have some parents that are real heavy on correction, like they're very rules and regulations, do it this way, don't think about it, do it the way I say. And then the children don't feel that you're coming from a place of love. And then, or, that you're going to protect them. And then in other cases, you have, some parents might, be really free, like they just want their children to feel free, enjoy childhood. There's plenty of time to act like a grown up. Just play now. You don't have to think too hard about anything. But then those children feel unprotected,
Right.
because when they go out in the real world, it's not like that. And so with what you're talking about in terms of connecting with them and really getting to know your children and not focus on our agenda, because we have an agenda. Parents always have ideas about what their children should be doing and thinking. I think that is very much relatable to what you're saying about really trying to connect with them and listen, actually listen to them.
Right. I think a big thing is what I try to do, not just with my son, but just period. And there's two different approaches, but I think number one, your upbringing plays a big part in it. Everybody is raised differently. So what I try to do for anyone who comes into my life, whether it's on business or personal, I've learned it is better to create a culture that someone can be transparent and be themselves in. How do you do that? You allow that person to be themselves. Because if every time they come into your presence, you're always trying to change them or force something on them or impose something on them. And it may be a good thing, but you can do a good thing a wrong way. Yes. So what I do to create that culture is every time they come in my presence, I let them be them. By doing that, just like a flower, you create that garden where that flower can bloom. It will open up itself. That child will come. That teenager will open up, and once they start to see that I can trust them. They will listen. They're not just trying to, tell me what I should be doing. When they open up, they'll tell you a lot more than what you'll get if you're too busy trying to pry them open with what you think they need.
So we've got meeting them where they are, and then allowing them to be themselves.
Create that culture.
Creating that environment where they feel that they can be themselves. Right. What else do you think, given your experience helping people, what else do you think could really help children have develop good leadership skills and really have a good sense of direction for themselves later on?
Honestly, the biggest thing is what they see, not what they hear, not what you have them rehearse. It's what they see. So like, for instance, when I'm with my son and we're driving, I talk to him so much about certain things that he knows it. I'm doing it on purpose because I'm rehearsing it in his spirit. I'm dropping seeds. But when we're driving, I'll say, Jairrod, what's that over there? And he'll say, that's land. And I'll say, what's more important? What's on top of it or the land itself? He'll say, the land. And then I'll quiz him. I'll say, so if I wanted to give you a nice shiny car, or if I wanted to give you that farm over there on the side, which one would you take? And I listen to him. He'll say, and this is actually what he said. He said, Dad, I'll go with the land. And I said, why will you go with the land? And again, he's rehearsing what I put in him. He'll say, I'll go with the land because you told me that the property is worth more, and I can do all types and kinds of things with the property, and I can buy that car later. I said, you better go ahead, man. That's just being able to have those talks, because let's face it, right now, a lot of families are either separate or they're blended, or you have some that are divorced, you have some that are single. Everybody's not on the same level or playing field. But that doesn't mean you can't give the same type of value to your child. And so Jairrod knows when I talk to him, and I talk to him about whether it's, property, the value of financing, the value of money, Or when we pull up at a grocery store, I say, Jairrod, where do we park? He's like, Dad, we parked up by the letter T. And I taught him that when we pull up to a grocery store, remember where we park by looking on the building at the letter or the logo on the building. That will help locate so that we can remember where. All of these things, I'm just dropping seeds. And he regurgitates that. But more so than me saying it, he sees me do it.
Right.
We can preach and teach and want to do we can want to do the greatest of things, but they're going to do what they ultimately see us do all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good one. That is a good one. So what else do you think?
I think that this generation and our generation that is coming up, I think that I know that they're a lot easier to reach than what it looks. But all it takes is for somebody to care enough for you to see it. See, you don't see it when you have the perspective of, we need to change that. We don't like how they look. We don't like how they dress. We don't like the music see, when you focus on all of the stuff that keeps you separate, it doesn't allow you to see that person. You're only able to look at that person. But when you're able to sit down and talk to that individual and you can hear that person's heart, you can then see that facade start to come down, because now you've got them in an environment where they feel like, I'm comfortable enough. We don't put enough emphasis on creating an environment and a culture to where they feel comfortable being vulnerable. We demand that they give us information. I might have some people give some negative feedback on what I'm about to say, but it's a teachable moment. With my son, for instance, whooping, being spanked. We come up from a generation to where, it was a belt, it was a switch, it was a hand, a fist, and all types and kind of things. But I didn't want to do that with my son because I didn't think it was necessary.
Me too.
There's a big difference between punishing and correcting.
Exactly.
Jairrod doesn't need to be punished in a sense of physical. He's very sensitive. He's very intuitive. He's very observant. I'm making sure I do whatever to make most certain that he's better than me. So a lot of times, because he is so heartfelt, it doesn't require a belt. It doesn't require for you to demean his character or humiliate him. If you talk to him, and this is the stuff that I'm telling you what I practice, not what I've read, not what I've seen somebody, because I grew up getting whooped, didn't like it. But I found out later that you can correct a child without physical discipline. And, different families are going to see it different ways. But as for me, I see it more productive because it gains his trust. Now, when he does something wrong, just like any of us, we know we've done something wrong. And I'll tell him what he's done wrong. I'll show him what he's done wrong, but I'll also give him a chance to correct it. To me, being able to it may seem like a small thing, but it actually builds another bridge. So he trusts you now instead of hiding something when he does something wrong.
What you're talking about is huge. Absolutely huge. And it is not a small thing at all. It sets a lot of things in motion. It is the trust that you talk about, but it also is really about making choices and then recognizing that there are consequences of your choices. And a lot of times when we talk about consequences, people think of that negatively, like you have to live with the consequences or whatever. But there are positive consequences as well. If you work hard, you study, thinking of kids, you work hard, study for your test, and you get a good grade. That is a consequence. It's related to the action that you took beforehand. And so it's very, I mean, and really, that really gets to the heart of what discipline means. I mean, that's another word that people think of when it's about dealing with mistakes your child has made or misbehavior, when really discipline, it's all about teaching. That's what it is. It's teaching. And so that's what we have to focus on. I think previous generations, felt like when a child misbehaved, they needed to feel bad. They needed to make sure there was some pain so they could feel and, whatever. But really what happens is the child just focuses on the pain, and not the lesson. Whereas I was just very big on restoration, right. Whether it's restoring the relationship, like if you took something from somebody that didn't belong to you, you've got to restore that. Or if it's something you broke, how are you going to help contribute to repairing that or replacing right. that or whatever? That's what it's really about. And I mean, now I will say, and my son was home this past weekend and we were talking about it, and I was like, I was spanked when I was younger, but I didn't get spanked much because I was afraid. So I was afraid to act up. So, but with him, I mean, he was just, very active, high energy. And so I used to tap his legs when he was, younger, like 2 or 3. But I said, even myself being the one that has the power, I can do that to him. I was like, I don't, this isn't the way I want to do this. I got to find another way, because what I wanted him to do was learn how to not hit his brother, or learn how to not, run away from me at the store or whatever. Mm-hmm. Spanking's not necessarily going to teach that. I got to figure out how to teach him. And you certainly can't teach him not to hit people if I'm hitting. So, so I'm thankful that he was a child that didn't really learn from that. He didn't learn from spanking, So, I found something else. And, it's really about teaching, which I think is what you're saying too.
Like you said, you knew that you would get a whooping, so you just did everything, not because it was the right thing, but you didn't want to get the wrong result. So to me, it's more than just being a teachable moment. You have to combine that teachable moment with love, because it's not correction if it doesn't have an element of love. If I don't love you, it's not about correction. It's about authoritative, and it's about dominance. It's about force, and it's about me being right. So what's more important, you being right or you teaching him or her what's the right thing to come out of it? So that's what, and plus I didn't want to carry everything that was done by your grandparents or your parents is not going to work for your household. You have to find out what works for your home, your family, even if everybody else doesn't agree, because maybe they may see you don't whoop your kids or you don't put your hands on them, but you discipline them in a different way. Well, that's not going to work. Well, it didn't work for your kids, but it's working fine for mine, because what you don't want is you don't want them to get to the point where they're so afraid that now you attach correction with fear and not correction with teachable out of being loved. So now I don't want to go to mom. I know if something happens, what am I going to do? I'm going to be silent. And what happens to the ones that are silent? They get isolated. And then those are the ones that get picked off. So it's about you seeing a problem that our other generations had and saying, well, let me upgrade that. Let me change that, because everything passed down to us wasn't good. But you have to be man or woman enough to say, you know what, as for me and my household, I'm going to do things differently.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, and to be fair too, there are things from previous generations that were good.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, you may not be able to do it the same way or teach it the same way, as previous generations. And it's all about, I'm like, almost like, Dad, have you been reading my book? I know you haven't because it just came out, but I'm just like, that's what I talk about in there, because sometimes, parents do look at other people, and try things that they see other parents do. But it's only a snapshot in time. Like, they're trying
Right.
something that they're seeing work right then, but they don't know the foundation that has been laid for it to work like that. So
Right.
you have to, that's why you really have to just parent the children you have, and how you parent and teach is in the context of your relationship. Because I don't know if you've ever seen, like, say you're out in the store, and the child is acting up, and the parent kind of looks around because they're embarrassed. They feel like the other people in the store are looking at them like, you don't have any control over your child or whatever. I mean, nobody has said a word. Nobody's necessarily said a word, but this is what they think. And so then they automatically start, jerking the child around, or yelling, or maybe spanking them, or whatever, because they have an audience. Whereas, instead, it's like, if that's, hopefully that's not something you normally do, but if it's not something you normally do, you're kind of betraying the trust of your child right there, because that's not how you all have been interacting. That's not your framework or your relationship. But now all of a sudden, since you're out in public and people see you, you're doing something else. And so you have to really honor the relationship that you have established with your child, and teach from that standpoint, and not from what you see other people doing.
I always say that, and it may sound strange, but when you get married, or when you have a child, in my opinion, I don't. When I had Jairrod, I didn't become a father. I became a parent, because being a father is a thing that you graduate into.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no perfect booklet that was there for you that you can go and revert to. Here's chapter 2. This is exactly what you do. So you have a lot of us who are learning as we go what works and what doesn't work, what's comfortable and what's not comfortable. And I think a lot of times we run into, well, this works for us, but this is not what I came from. And do I still carry on what I came from versus what I see works better in my household? You have to work with what works in your household, because your household is your community. That's your culture. And,
Absolutely.
So to me, you don't have perfect parents out there. Your parents may have shown you the highlights and the cropped and edited versions, but there were some places and things that they didn't tell you about. So before you get all puffed up and, well, look at my mom and look at if they really tell you the truth of all of the stuff, because they had some trials and then they had some good times, but it was a roller coaster. And then when they found some equilibrium, boom, here you came. And now that we've gotten older, we got to do the same thing, because I'm going to raise Jairrod. Like for instance, yes, everybody knows me as a speaker. Everybody knows me as a coach. But the thing is, even though I teach Jairrod about it, I still don't impose it on Jairrod. What I do is I let Jairrod know that there's greatness in him. And whatever fashion it comes out of, as long as you're responsible and I'm responsible to get it out. He may be a technician, he may be in technology, he may be an attorney, he may be a speaker, but whatever it is, he doesn't have to follow in my footsteps, as long as he follows in the footsteps that God ordained him.
Yes. And it's funny. I actually don't have it with me. But that's kind of what I talk about in my book. It's not like I don't have, do step 1, step 2, step 3, and this is going to happen. It's really, in essence, these are some things you need to think about, but really you got to parent your kids the way they need to be parented, and because they all come into this world with temperaments. And first of all, and they come in here to this world with a purpose that God gave them. And it's really our job to guide them to finding their gifts and their talents and their interests, and the compassion to share the gift and follow the purpose that God gave them. That's what we're supposed to do. And that's really, in essence, what the book talks about. So here's some ideas for you to do that. And this is what worked for me. And hopefully the way I searched for what would work for me will help you search for what's going to work for you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that, I tell you that, we are definitely on the same page, about that. That's awesome. So, what do you have coming up next? In your business or life?
Right now, Value on Purpose is busy. And for those of you who might hear and you're watching this by playback, you're saying, man, hopefully I didn't miss it. That's why I kind of waited a little bit later to explain what Value on Purpose is. Value on Purpose is my company that I built that is speaking, coaching, and advising. And I teach and I help equip people to understand their value. So what does that mean, Jairrod? I help people who are only able to look at themselves. I help them be able to see themselves. Those are two different things. So right now, I am preparing for a conference that I'll be speaking in called Success Fest 21.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's going to be a very huge platform. From what I understand, is between 40 or 80,000 that are going to be viewing the conference coming up. I also have some TEDx talks that I'm preparing for, along with some audio projects that I'm putting out, because a lot of people, they're on the go all the time, and they may not have the opportunity to pull out a book and read it like they want to, but on the airplane, you'll be able to hear me talk about what your value and your purpose is. So I'm creating audiobooks for people who are on the go, whether they want to listen to it in the airport or at the gym. But value and purpose is pretty simple because it's the two most asked questions from anyone. Who am I? That's your value. And where am I going? That's your purpose. That's exactly what I help people do. So what I'm doing now, I've been grinding, and a lot of times I'll pull back from social media because you have to wear so many hats, and I need to get projects done. And so right now I'm also looking for different people to hire because you can't do it alone. You really can't. And but you need quality help. You want quality help. And as a content creator, those of us who are content creators, it bugs us to have to do anything else but create our content. I got books that I'm trying to get out. I have projects that I'm trying to get out. And to have me do anything else, it slows me down. So that is what Jairrod, Mr. Value and Value on Purpose, is doing. It's either speaking or coaching or being able to advise, but all of it, I do it with my heart. What makes me so good at what I do is because I've messed up so much. I've made so many mistakes. And when you make mistakes, I've learned that we look at mistakes as doing something wrong. And I understand there are mistakes that say you shouldn't do that. But mistakes are also an indication that you're being active.
Yes.
So you can't mess up if you didn't try at all.
Yeah.
So for those who are looking at this and you're hearing it, whether you're looking at and listening to the parenting portion, or you're saying, I need coaching, or I'm trying to be a speaker, whatever you're endeavoring in your purpose, you're going to have a lot of mishaps because it's the mistakes that you use to tell other people, you know what, I've been there. That's the difference between me relating to someone and me just being
Mm-hmm.
able to talk to them. When I relate, I'm able to have empathy because I messed up before. I'm able to
Mm-hmm.
have compassion because I've been there before. And when
Mm-hmm.
people know that you're real, that's when they're drawn to you to invest in you.
Absolutely. Well, tell our viewers where they can get more information about you and
I'm on
value and
every
purpose.
I'm on every platform, Facebook, TikTok recently. I'm trying to learn how to TikTok. Um, Instagram, Twitter. I'm a little bit on LinkedIn, but my thing is it's always Jairrod A. Burch.
Okay.
And you can find me on any platform, message me. A lot of people I get a lot of people who come in asking either can I speak at an event for them or can I mentor or coach? And I'm real approachable. So I'm not one of those people where, I see your message, I'm going to leave you on red, depending on who you are. But because some folks, let's be real, some people, they don't, but that's what the consultation is for. I want to make sure that we're the right fit, but everybody needs somebody in their life who is not just giving them advice, but they're there giving them sound counsel. And everybody can't give sound counsel. Sound
Mhm.
counsel comes from life, experiences, mistakes, failures, and successes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that is definitely a good note to close on. I thank you so much for coming and talking about it. It definitely gave me an opportunity to hear even more about what you do, but also, to get your thoughts on parenting. I like to hear, regardless of the topic that we're covering. I like to always bring it back home to what can parents be thinking about, and so I think that you've given some good tips, some good insights for what parents can do to, just help their children not feel like, at 18 when they, say leave the house, whether it's to go to college, go into military service, or start working or something, to not feel rudderless, like no purpose or no idea of no self-awareness, no idea of what they might want to do with their lives, and also no idea about how they can serve. So
If I could say this just briefly, it's important, Carol, that people know what purpose looks like. The reason why I'm saying that is because there's a concept that once you find your purpose and you start working in it, everything's okay. Absolutely false.
oh yeah,
As
no.
the reason why I say you need to know what purpose looks like is because if
Mhm.
you don't know what purpose looks like, you'll look at your child and say, "What's wrong with you? Why are you going through this?" But
Yeah.
purpose is difficult. There's a side to purpose that looks like panic because you don't think that you can handle the weight of it. That
It looks like
you don't need to
pain.
just
Yeah.
find your
Mhm.
purpose. You need somebody to help walk you through your purpose so that you can walk it the way that it needs. So it's important. Learn what purpose looks like. So
Yep.
when you see it from the outside, you don't judge it and say, well, how come you're not doing anything? Why aren't you doing this? You look depressed. Why aren't you doing? Sometimes they're just saying, you know what? Honestly, like the young lady who I told you in the beginning said, Jared, I'm just stuck. Not that I
Mhm.
don't want to do it, not that I don't know what to do. Right now, I'm just being honest in myself. And I'm saying at this point in time, I do need somebody to help me get to where I need to be. Learn what purpose
Right.
looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. So thank you everybody who tuned in with us this evening. And like I said, I hope that on Saturday you'll come. It's a different time. It'll be 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon, where I will be talking with AD Selassie. And as I said, we'll be talking about what she's done to help teens who are in need of mental health support, as well as a community that really needed, literally, quite literally, needed light in their
Yeah.
community. And she helped bring solar energy into their community, and also is helping them to develop independence as well. So you don't want to miss that. I mean, it's very inspiring what she's doing. And, I like to definitely on social media or wherever, when I hear about young people doing positive things, it just gives me hope that our future is in very good hands. So I like to highlight that. Just like, I want to give kudos to Naomi Osaka for, speaking up for herself, at the French Open, really standing up for her own mental health. I think that was very courageous of her to do that. And, that's what we want to do. We want our children, our young people, our young adults to feel like they can walk in their truth and express themselves. So tune in on Saturday, and thank you all, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Let's see.